Today's story was written by Reddit user Neinty-neinth-knight. I don't know who's going to hear this, but if my kind are extinct by the time you hear this, it won't affect you. Not that it would have in the first place. You aren't at fault. Sorry, manners. My name is Hestian Veracor. I'm currently the primary intelligence of my species, the Veracor. It doesn't matter. The point is, my brother and I have made a huge mistake. We've done something irreparable with inescapable consequences. Okay then, let's start at the beginning. We've experienced and documented a phenomenon throughout the explored universe for billions of years that we call cognitive coalescence. Basically, at some point in its existence, a species will transition from many people to one singular entity. Whether that be through the creation of the Gestalt conscience, or some kind of supercomputer, or just naturally evolving into a hive mind like I did. At some point, only a single mind will remain to govern a race of what's effectively just biomechanical labour at that point. At least that's what we thought. And as you tend to do when you don't think an alternative exists, we thought that coalescence was just better, since every species had done it before meeting us. In my second cycle since making contact with my brethren, I was just figuring out how to extend the communications network I needed to govern my people when we found a new species. Humans, they called themselves. A primitive species. Surprisingly, even they considered themselves as such. They classified themselves as a Kardashev 0.82 species at the time, with most of my siblings clocking in at a Kardashev 3 or 4. So, the universe being as it is, we offered to help. After all, the universe was a lonely place. Still is. And the sooner we could bring a new species into the fold, the faster life would become less dull. The first thing we learnt about humanity was that they learnt fast. Anything we gave them, every last piece of technology and knowledge, they would absorb and expand upon faster than anything we'd ever seen. We began using the word Aracol for them because of this. A word in a language designed to accommodate all 8 of us, a word that means ravenous minds. Then we learnt something else. They were tenacious little beings, curious about everything, but never were they discouraged by failure. If even one of them was convinced that something could work, they would make it work even if it took them generations to do so. There were talks, mostly prompted by the Kazaran, about the benefits that humans would bring to us once they had advanced to our level, judging purely on their will to persevere. All were in agreement that the most likely outcome would be that humanity would drive the science and technology of the universe while we maintained our own niches. And then the day came that we suggested coalescence, that they became one to better the survival of their species. There was discourse among them, and in hindsight, that should have been an indicator of the terrible mistake we were about to make. Some of them sided with us, some stood against the idea. All did so for infinitely diverse reasons. So when Villar offered to help the humans achieve coalescence, we witnessed something new in humanity, something we had not seen since stars above. I can't even remember anymore. We witnessed human violence and strife, the hatred and passion of untold trillions lashing out against their neighbours over whether to accept our offer or not. In the end, my brethren fired up ancient foundries to help end the conflict before the humans wiped themselves out, and for the first time in about 2 billion years, the galaxy knew war. Me? Well, I finally figured out the communications issue and was in the middle of reorganising myself when it all happened. I know the honourable thing to say would be that I abstained from the war because I realised we were making a mistake, but truthfully, I stayed out of it because I was the youngest of the 8, and I had decided that I could bring nothing to the table that they would need. Gods of the homeworld, I was such an idiot. We all were. The others allied themselves with a human group known as the Temple of Order, a group who supported the concept of coalescence. They created a body much like my kind did, and what Villar and most of the others had done. Something that would run without faltering until the stars themselves died out, and then keep going until it was no longer feasible to keep a species alive. Something that could house the new mind of a species, and then they flipped a switch, and every human in the universe became one. We celebrated, of course, but in the revelry the others didn't see the look of the abject horror on the human's face as it saw itself for the first time. They didn't see it cover its ears and run screaming in agony and fear halfway around its homeworld. They didn't hear the dying breaths of trillions across the universe. But I did, and all I wanted was to help ease this new consciousness, this child of an entire species, into its new role as their caretaker, and I saw all of it happen. I need a moment. The memories are causing some kind of feedback loop in my body's musculature. We didn't hear from the human again for a long time. Apparently it had left Earth. The others assumed it was using the time it now had to explore the galaxy. I knew that it wanted peace from whatever had happened to it in those first moments. In the meantime, I had grown, disillusioned with the evolutionary theory that others prided themselves on. Could it truly be so perfect if it had seemingly driven a species to madness? No, it couldn't. So I lied. I told the others that I would be conducting an experiment within my territory, something that would be severely hampered by the use of fold drives. In effect, I had severed myself from my brethren for the next 3 cycles. For comparison to any future species, a cycle is our unit of time, and it's about a quarter of the time it takes for a G-type main sequence star, the yellow small ones, to go from birth to death. A good comparison to species who is hopefully still bound by mortality would be both a second and a millennium. Time gets kind of fuzzy when you don't have an expiration date. The idea was originally to go dark afterwards, to vanish as the human had. I could no longer look my brethren in the eyes after what they had done. I could no longer look at my empire without feeling, I guess it's called guilt. Then, a few planetary rotations ago, the human showed up in my chambers. It seemed to have become more coherent since last I saw it. At first I thought it was there to kill me. I mean, it would have only been fair. We did effectively execute their entire species. But it didn't. It had decided that the Veracor were innocent, although I can't fathom why. It told me that humanity had decided not to kill the others, but to make them suffer as it did. At first, I couldn't understand what it meant. How could any kind of suffering make up for the death of trillions? Would it not just be to put them to the same fate? I remember seeing the human smile at the question. Synthetic muscles working in tandem to display a set of teeth, and in that moment I felt something that my species hadn't felt in 4 cycles. Fear. I managed to capture the human statement of its reasoning, splicing in the recording now. When they pulled that lever and I was born, I felt the souls of every human in the universe collide in my mind. All their memories, their personalities, their passions, their pain, and none of them understood what was happening. But the few that could reason it out were horrified. So I ran, driven by the base instincts of a condemned race. Can you picture that, brother? Having an unknowable quantity of voices in your mind screaming in the hopes of not being forgotten? I am a walking graveyard, an unholy algorithm of the kindness and cruelty, the love and hatred, the empathy and indifference of an entire species who never got along to begin with. A little while ago, they finally agreed on something. The people who did this to us had to face judgment, and they made the mistake of giving the last human immortality. On the blood of my species, I will give them the most terrible gift of all. I will give them human free will. And I have until the stars run cold to figure out how I'm going to do it. It won't kill them, but for a hive mind, it will arguably be a fate worse than death. If I knew then what I know now, I would have joined the human war, but I would have supported the other faction. Stars have mercy on us, though we do not deserve it. I'm splicing in this recording with the other one. It's been a long time, even I can recognize that. The human has done exactly what they said they would. They've started giving free will to the others. They started with the Kazaran, an ascendant conscience that existed purely as data on the servers on Dyson rings. I say existed for a reason. The prime intellect stored on her homeworld nearly went rampant a while ago, in a display so similar to the human that I immediately knew what had happened. Some of my scouts report that the rings have gone dark, serving as little more than power plants. You see, Kazaran delegated the running of each star system to one of these rings, and only personally oversaw her empire in broad strokes. Except the human had somehow made them sentient, and the information feedback merged them with Kaz's prime conscience. Exactly what they said they'd do. Human determination was terrifying already, and now the last of their kind has a species worth of it. Vila and Genus seem to be experiencing the same thing as Kaz. I'm less worried about the former. He'll probably just revert back to the way his species functioned before coalescence. Genus, though, is a different matter. The system shock of that happening to it might end up depowering the poor synthetic. I've sent an extension of myself to each of their homeworlds to do what I failed to do for the human. I still agree they deserve this, but they needn't suffer alone. I'm splicing this in with the previous recording. It's been nearly 100 cycles. I honestly don't know who I'm leaving this recording for anymore. My latest data shows that it started the death of the universe. At this point, there isn't feasibly enough time left for another intelligent species to be born, so I guess I'm making this for myself. The human has seemingly taken up a secondary objective. Any other primitive species they've found, they've protected from my brethren. This doesn't mean that they've disregarded their original objective. If anything, they are continuing more fervently now that they have 1,000 races aiding their research. Those who've already received humanity's gift and recovered are hanging back. We help where we can, but we all understand that the 4 who remain brought this onto themselves. Honestly, they seem better off than the human ever was. They weren't driven to near extinction like humanity. Whether this is by design or not, I do not know. You know, I just had a thought. I don't think the human ever took a name. Then again, how would you be capable of that when you aren't a singular entity? No matter. If I ever see them again, I'll ask. Now, if you will excuse me, there seems to be a situation at the edge of my territory which requires my attention. It's time. Today, I ordered my species to stand down. There was no more point in trying to survive. In a few hours, my homeworld sun will go supernova and incinerate everything that I had worked on since my species first rose to the stars, oh so long ago. People might wonder how I can give up so easily after so long, but the truth is, my body is like the humans, immortal. Everything me or any of my brethren have done since the death of the first stars has been to pass the time. Arguably, the only one of us that has done anything with some kind of purpose has been the human, the youngest among our ranks and the one who has suffered the most, the human. You know, I think I'll go see if Earth is still around. It's high time I went to pay my respects. It took me a while to find it. I'm not sure entirely how long it took, but I've watched quite a few more stars vanish from the night sky while searching. Stars that I watched die on my journey here. Mental calculations suggest that at least another cycle has passed. Earth is higher in its orbit than I remember. and a megastructure that I assume to be some kind of engine has been constructed on the South Pole. There are traces of biological life beneath the surface, likely evolved to survive off the geothermal heat. In all honesty, this doesn't seem like a bad place to wait for what remains of eternity to pass. Hold on. There appears to be someone following me. Not just anyone. Brother! So, you're telling me that you took a break and decided to casually raise the orbit of your homeworld to survive the death of its sun? I've spent the majority of the lifespan of the universe finding ways to give free will and individuality to a bunch of hive minds in the name of vengeance, and the fact that I decided to move a planet is what surprises you? Fair point. Did you manage to find Eureka? No, the bastard threw his entire species into a black hole to escape me. By the stars! I don't think that will apply for much longer, brother. You know, even as immortals, we never really thought about the heat death of the universe, did we? I mean, we obviously knew it would happen, but now we've only got the death of the stars and the gradual decay of black holes to look forward to. We've quite literally outlived the universe. Well, do you know what you're going to do to keep busy until it's no longer possible to keep going? I don't know. Maybe I'll go for a walk, explore this new supercontinent on Earth. Maybe I'll study the new life forms here. What about you? I still have a few thousand species worth of people who need a new home. Well, I might go around trying to create stars. After all, I've spited evolution. Who says I can't spy entropy? After that, I might take up gardening, figure out where life came from, and plant its seeds on new worlds. Always ambitious, aren't you, Arako? Ha! That's a name I haven't heard in a long time. I might use that alongside the name I've chosen for myself. Terra Arako. Kind of has a ring to it, doesn't it? Why specifically Terra? It's an old name for Earth. From the dust of Earth my kind were born, and to the same dust they would always return. Yet with the final human death they came to me. I have taken the role of Earth, the home and final grave of humanity. I think I understand, and now that I know your name, I can truly say that it's good to finally meet you, Terra Arako. And you, Hestrom Veracor. You know, you could travel with us if you wish. Even if we can't reignite the stars, it'll give you something to do. I'm not sure they'd want me in their fleets, not after such a long time spent resisting our brethren. Do you forget who gave me information whenever they tried to make a move on a new species? The fleet would gladly have you. Damn it all, what have I got to lose? It has been... I don't even think the old increments of time apply anymore. Alright, Terra, we'll do it your way. It has been 13 billion years since my sibling first succeeded in reigniting a star. We're not sure how many of the others have survived, if any. The other day, I found Genus on an asteroid passing through the new Sol system, dead as can be from power loss. Terra did exactly what they said they would do. They reignited about a galaxy worth of stars and gave new homes to all the species of the fleet. And then they went further. They used the limited information on the human genome that they'd gathered to create the species all over again. And then, Terra Arako, the only one of my brethren I ever considered to truly be my sibling, allowed the minds of the untold trillions trapped inside their head to be given new bodies. It's a long process, obviously. New Earth can only support so many people. The process of liberating them has also put my sibling into a state that I can only equate to death. Every quarter century or so, a tiny part of them is given to the new humans, and eventually only an empty shell of biocomponents will remain. It's strange though. I still see terror in the eyes of every curious human child who comes to ask me questions. I still hear their voice in the tales of the village elders. And now that I think about it, I finally know why I've been recording this. This recording is a tale of the last human and the story of the first. This is a tale of all the beautiful and terrifying things that make this species so magnificent. Terra used to refer to themselves as a walking graveyard, but I've never truly agreed with that. Coalescence made this human into a spirit of vengeance, an entity who would spite the universe not only by defying evolution and entropy, but by bringing back an extinct race. And they did it all to get back at my brethren for what they did. The rest of the universe can help themselves, but humanity is once more merely a newborn child in a cradle, and I must guide them. I owe my sibling that much at the very least. So know that you stand on hallowed ground, and know that you are welcome as long as you harbour no ill intent. But if you do, then consider this. I am older than everything you have ever known, and I will still be there long after it has all crumbled to dust. And know that this world is under my protection. Recording found by human explorers in a tomb on the moon of Elysium, formerly New Earth. After a silent agreement, it was decided to leave the site and its occupant be.